So Kino's Journey this week does a very interesting approach where it's multiple short stories. We don't focus on one or two big cities or countries or anything like that. It's just a multitude of stories between Kino as well as Shizu and his gang. And I actually really like this. If this was a very much common thing, if this was like an every other episode thing, then we might have an issue. But because this was a one-off thing, just having a quick kind of like almost slideshow between all these different countries, it was very fun and it was very relaxing and it was a nice change of pace. Always good to see more Shizu and T and everything like that and all that. But I do think the first country, the first one we primarily focus on, which took a good chunk of this episode, was probably my favorite because it reminded me a lot of the very first episode of this new season, where in the first episode we had this country where murder was legal. But then with this country, we have something that's even more intriguing and in theory might actually be the perfect system to keep people in line, where essentially every good deed you do, it earns you points, but every bad deed you do, depending on the crime, deducts points. If you go into negative points, that's when you get thrown in jail. Pretty much focus on one character, minus Kino of course, where he was like the mayor or the president of this country or whatever, and essentially he's racked up the most point anyone in this country ever has done, to the point that he could actually kill someone and not go to jail. And we learned that that's actually his purpose for becoming as good as he was, because his entire goal since he was a kid was he wanted to kill someone. So you can tell he's not all right in his head. But I like what they did with this character because he's trying to figure out who he should kill. He has all these points, everything that he's been working up to, he now has. And then he sees this like helpless baby. He's like, maybe this baby is what I should kill. Don't grow up to be me. I like how they went the route of, even when someone has the ability to, there's going to be no repercussions. He's not going to go to jail. No one can say what he did is wrong because that's the way the system works. Even at the same time, he doesn't do it. And I think that's why the system is so interesting, because of course there would be some people who would abuse the system so they could do bad deeds, which this guy absolutely wanted to do. But I like how even in the face of that, even when you have a country where murder is legal, even when you have a country where you could rack up enough points to kill someone, they don't do it more times than not. And I think that's why it's so interesting. When you have things be illegal and you can't do it, it's almost like people want to do it more in a lot of ways. And I find that to be so interesting, especially when you just see how there's a conversation between Kino as well as this guy where he says, you know, someone can do good things their entire life, and once they do one bad thing, everyone thinks they're a bad person. But someone who does bad things all their life, once they do a good thing, they now seem like a good person. And it's so interesting, it's so true in many ways, and that's why I think the system is so interesting. This is the type of stuff I love with Kino's Journey the most, is when it poses a question where you're like, if this was to happen in our own world, would it be for the better or would it be for the worse? And that's the stuff I love with Kino's Journey. Of course, if they did this every single week, I think it would get a little stale, but the fact that it doesn't abuse us, but it does have these very impressive moments, makes this one of the most interesting series I think you can watch, just because it poses questions a lot of anime doesn't want to kind of pose to people. On top, there was some fun stuff, the cooking stuff, the tea stuff. It was a fun episode. It's nothing to write home about more times than not, but this was a type of episode that I like that they did sprinkle in. It's a very different flavored style of an episode. It's not trying to be the same, and I think that's kind of what this season of Kino's Journey wanted to be. It didn't want to be like the original Kino's Journey. It wanted to tell stories that the original didn't tell, wanted to show you a lot different of perspectives, but at the same time, it did want to show you some really cool stories on top of just different formatted ones, and that's why I think this one sticks out a lot from the original. Both are great in their own way, but it's nice to see that we are having things like this, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do next week. Really enjoyed this episode. Not my favorite episode, but I did think that the overall first country that we witnessed might be one of the coolest posed questions that we've seen, because I think, you know, just the whole country legal murder and then this whole point system, it's so interesting, and when you think about it applied to your own world, it's like, is it right or wrong? And that's the kind of stuff I love with Kino's Journey. Really like this episode, really like the directing, and there was actually some funny moments, especially with Kino's like customary dish there with all the hot peppers and things like that. But let me know your thoughts. What did you think of all the different countries, and of all of them, what was your favorite? Was it the first one, or did you find one of the others more interesting? Let me know your thoughts, and before you leave, smack that like button to show your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.